What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so one of the biggest gripes that today's basketball consumers have when it comes to the NBA is that it can be very difficult to watch your favorite team play. Um, I would say, with the exception of maybe the Lakers and the Warriors, it could be, and maybe the Knicks, but especially the Warriors and Lakers. With the exception of those teams, it can be very difficult to even watch 2/3 of your favorite team play basketball, right? But I remember as a kid growing up in the 90s, uh, just with cable television, you didn't have to have a expensive uh, TV package to watch most of the games. With the combination of WGN, which is a Chicago affiliated network station that came on the cable package, with the combination of WGN, TNT, TBS, and NBC, when NBC still had the NBA, I was probably able to watch during the second three-peat something around 65, 66 of the 82 games. And then the other ones, I was able to watch on highlights, at least highlights, and read about it in the newspaper. So it was pretty, you had a good gist of, how the team was and how the team flowed. And, it was kind of easier being a fan back then of your favorite team. Now, you would think with the growth of the NBA and the availability of NBA packages that it would be much easier to follow your favorite teams, but it's not, because the NBA now has so many different contracts with so many different streaming channels or streaming apps. So the games are sort of spread out so far at any given random day that it can be very difficult to keep up with the games and where they get played. So this was brought to Adam Silver's attention, the so-called commissioner of the NBA, in a recent Q&A, and his answer just totally, reveals to me how the NBA really relies on casuals now, not real basketball fans. Listen to what he had to say.
There's a huge amount of our content that people can essentially consume for free. I mean, this is very much a highlights-based sport. So Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, any service. The New York Times, for that matter, to the extent that your content is not behind a paid firewall. There's an enormous amount of content out there. YouTube, by another example, that is advertising-based that consumers can consume.
It was a bit low, the audio, but basically, he said fans can rely on highlights. You can look at highlights on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, social media. You can look at highlights. And that just goes to show you how they feel about today's fan base, right? And, it goes to show you how they feel about today's product. You're not missing anything. You're really not missing anything. And that's the sad thing about it, is that now we're to a point where we're to a point now where you're relying on highlights to get a good feel of the game. And, when you look at highlights in itself, highlights are carefully edited footage that can be put together to convey a certain image or narrative that a person wants to put out there. Now, what I mean by that is, if you just chop up a highlight and you show a guy making all their shots, right, in a particular game, you put the big shots that they make, right? They can look like an absolute monster on the court, right? But if you actually look at the actual game and have a more objective and a more thorough examination of how that game actually went down, you could see how impactful that player truly was, how efficient they were, how active they were on defense, shot selection. You could see their effect on the game as a whole. Were they more effective in the first half? Were they more effective down the stretch? Were they quote unquote clutch? These things get lost in translation when you're just looking at fucking highlights. You know what I'm saying? Sorry for the exultive laughter in the background. But anyway, these things get lost in the shuffle when you just watching highlights. I mean, I could never imagine David Stern saying that. I could never imagine David Stern saying something like this. Just go watch highlights. And the other thing I was going to try to say is that tells you, and it's something that a lot of us have been feeling for quite some time, the NBA has been relying more and more on casuals as a fan base. I mean, look at the stuff that they push, like this moronic GOAT debate. And I mean, it's low-hanging fruit, low common denominator bullshit. You have people who come out and supposedly complain about how sports talk has gotten low, and they come out and put out some bullshit podcasts, supposedly minding the game, but really they're just minding their own legacy. And that's the problem. But this is bullshit, man. This guy has to be the worst commissioner in the history of sports, man. The worst commissioner in the history of sports. Bar none. But anyway, that's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.